brand new experience. Namaste, my name is Melanie Pace, and it gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all here. Thank you so much for giving us your valuable time and for being a part of this magical experience. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this year, we're going to start off on a slightly different note. I'm sure everybody here knows about JBL, right? Yes, everybody's heard JBL? Okay. Well, here at Harman Live Arena, we always encourage you to tune into the perfect sound. And if you're listening on JBL, you're already tuned into the perfect sound. Well, with a show of hands, how many JBL lovers here? How many JBL lovers in the house? Excellent. Well, we are starting with one of JBL Professional's most anticipated launches of this year, the JBL VTX A6 line array system, the latest addition to our formidable tour audio lineup. And to do the honors, I would like to invite on stage Mr. George Giogalis, Director Product Management at Harman International. Let's welcome him with a huge round of applause, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here. Thanks for everyone coming today. And as we discussed, today is our official launch of the A6 and the B15 products for the Indian market. So we want to do, over the next 20 minutes, give you a quick overview of what the products are all about, the feature set, the specs, and then right after the 20-minute presentation, we're going to go straight into the fun part, which is the listening session for the sound system. Okay, so to start with, the VTX A6 is part of our VTX A-series family. So the A-series family started with the A12 first. So the A12 was the first that got developed in this family of products. It was the one that we used to create our new platform, invent the new technologies, and set the path for the future. And the A12 is the largest one of the three today. And a few years later, we introduced the A8. The A8 is the product that we have for front fills in this venue over here. So smaller size of the A12, same technologies, same principles. And then today, we're launching our A6 product, which is the smallest one of the A-series family, which again, it is based on the same technologies as the rest of the VTXs, just in a different sound pressure level, right? So the way we choose these products, they do different size venues. They all have the same features, but they're just different SPL requirements for different applications. So all the A-series products have a common industrial design, so they all look the same, so they look like a nice family. They all follow the same acoustical principles, so we have a lot of technologies in the A-series products, like our RBIs and our compression drivers that we use across all of them. And then they all have uniform accessories, meaning if you know how to use one of them, you know how to use all of them. They have common voicing, which is critical. They all sound the same. So when you use them together, right here, for example, we use A8 with A12s. They sound the same. It's very easy to tune them and make them work well together. And then they also have the same rigging. So if your crew knows how to deal with one of the VTXs, then they know how to use all of them. And they're all part of the same software suite. So the same softwares that we use to control them and predict them, you can use the same software for all of the different SKUs. OK, so the A6 being the smallest one of the lineup, it also has the largest potential in terms of applications. So A12s are usually for the largest shows, for the large venues and things like that. A6s, being the smallest one and very compact, can apply to all kinds of different applications, anywhere from outdoors concerts to small theaters, smaller venues, and things like that. So it's a very versatile system and can be used in a lot of different applications. Now, to go with the VTXs, we also have B series. So A series are the tops. A stands for arrays. So A's are the arrays. And then we also have the B series, which are the base units. So far, we had the B28, which is the large dual 18. We had the B18, and now we are also having the B15. So the B15 is the one on the left and right of the A6s. So the B15, again, follows the same principles as the rest of the B series products, but in a different, smaller footprint. So it's a 15-inch woofer instead of 18-inch woofers in the rest of the lineup. And then it's mechanically compatible with the A6. So you can rig them above the A6s, or you can stack A6s above the B15s. Now, B series is the newest one of the subwoofer offerings. We also have the G and the S28s, which we had for some time now. So for example, for this show, we're using the G28 out front over here. So even though the B15 is the subwoofer for the A6, all the VTXs are compatible with all of the subwoofers. So the A6 is perfectly compatible with the G28 and the S28 subwoofers that we already have in the market. Later today, when we listen to the A6, we're going to be listening to the A6 with the B15. But we're going to also be listening to a few tracks with the A6 and the B28s. The A6 does go all the way down to 80 Hertz at full output. So it's a very good match for these bigger dual 18 subwoofers. Now, the B15, it's also a full-blown subwoofer, so it's not an LF unit. So it goes all the way down to 35 Hertz, so it can be used as a subwoofer. And again, when we do some of the listening tests, you're going to see how strong of bass response we have out of the B15. It's an 8-ohm loudspeaker, so it's very easy in terms of amplification, and it's very compact and mechanically compatible with the A6. The B15G is identical to the regular B15, but without the rigging. So G stands for ground. So this is a ground-only version of the B50, which gives us a bit lower cost and also quite a bit lighter in terms of weight. Now, as I said before, the greatest aspect of the A6 is the versatility. So some of the bigger PAs, they tend to do one thing. They're suspendable PAs. They do large shows. The A6, one of the greatest things of the A6 is the scalability. So A6 can be used anywhere from a few of them on a pole mount on top of a couple of subwoofers to a larger ground stack system, like on top of B15s, B28s, or the S and G subwoofers. And we can suspend up to 24s to do bigger shows. So it's a very versatile system. So you can have quite a few in the inventory, and then you can decide to use them however the next show requires. So scalability is key to this feature. And when you do large arrays, you're going to listen to them later on. You can scale to a very large system to actually do large shows. Now, inside the A6, so we're going to go through some of the highlights in terms of engineering. So we developed a brand new 3-inch compression driver for the A6, specifically for this product to make sure it performs at the same level as the A8 and the A12. It's a two-way system with a new RBI. So RBI is the horn technology that we have. So you see some of the plastic parts in front of the woofers. So that is what we call an RBI. So that's new for A6. We have new woofers and new ports. So the point here is that A6 was developed from the ground up, from brand new transducers, brand new acoustic design. So there was no reuse from our existing catalog. It was a big project for us, and everything was designed specifically for the A6. Now, what makes the A series a very strong family is the high-frequency compression driver. So a lot of what gives line arrays their character in terms of sound is the compression driver. So usually, all of the things that we tend to like or not like about systems is from 1 kilohertz and above, which means whatever character we receive from a sound system comes from the compression driver, and as an extension of that, the waveguide. And with the A12, we kind of turned everything around, and we redesigned the compression driver and the waveguide system for the A12 to use different materials. So instead of using titanium and aluminum and things like that, these are using composite diaphragms and give it a much different character than traditional compression drivers can give. So these new compression drivers use much fewer parts. They're far more integrated. And then because they don't use the traditional aluminum and titanium diaphragms, they're much sweeter sounding and far less aggressive at very high outputs. And then all the systems, including the A12, the A8, and the A6, are using the exact same compression drivers. And that's what gives us that sonic compatibility and the sonic consistency across these different lines. So that all comes from the compression driver. Now, the other big aspect of the A6 is the acoustic design. So when we look at the A6 from the front, it's using two 6.5-inch woofers and one compression driver. And the big thing I wanted to do with the A6 was to create a very large horn for the compression driver. So we wanted to load the compression driver correctly and then have really, really good directivity. That's another good aspect of the A series. They have really good directivity. So for the A6, you can see that the two 6.5-inch woofers are loaded to this RBI waveguide. So the RBI is the plastic horns that we see in front of the system, which controls our spacing between woofers and gives us that really nice directivity and really nice control. So later when we play the A6, feel free to walk left to right, and hear how consistent the system is from one side to the other. And that thanks to the acoustic design, that's thanks to the RBIs and all these devices, acoustic devices we have in front of the woofers to control how the lows and the highs behave and how they integrate together. So that's another view of the inside of the speaker. So you can see the two 6.5-inch woofers here loaded onto a V arrangement, our unique compression driver in the system, and then there's a small passive network internally to cross the highs and the lows together. So the A6, it's a fully passive system and requires only one amplifier channel for the entire processing. Okay? So here we can see our two woofers, our low frequency ports on the sides, and then the compression driver and the crossover behind that. Now, JBL is a unique company because we design all of our transducers in-house. So going back many, many years ago, JBL was actually first a transducer company, and then it became a system company after that. So we still maintain that tradition, which is, again, unique to us, that we design all of our own woofers and compression drivers for our system. So when we start developing some of these products, we start with the requirements of the products, then we get with our transducer team and design specific components for these systems. And for the A6, the main thing was the woofer, right? So it's a compact system, and what makes a compact system loud and gives us a high pressure are the woofers. So for the A6, we ended up designing a new custom 6.5-inch woofer, which is very, very powerful to keep up with the highs and give such a compact system the output levels that we require. And this new woofer uses two voice coils. Usually, woofers use one voice coil internally. This new woofer uses two voice coils, which gives us twice the power of traditional woofers. And then it gives us much better heat dissipation and, again, much better output to keep up with the highs and create a very compact and powerful system. So custom HF, the same as the A12 and the A8, and then a brand new custom woofer to support that HF to get to those high output levels required. The B15 uses our same acoustic principles as the B28 and the B18. So we see the single 15-inch in the center and then corner ports for our low-frequency ports. And then this also has a brand new 15-inch woofer developed specifically for the B15. And that uses the same technology from the A6 where we have dual voice coils. So this is using two 4-inch voice coils, two neodymium magnets, and two gaps. So we have double the power dissipation, power handling, much better power dissipation to, again, create that very high output. Now, from the amplification point of view, all the VTXs come as a complete solution and as the complete system. So just like the rest of the catalog, the A6 and the B15 are powered by iTech amplifiers. We have a few different iTechs in the lineup, so you can use the 2-channel iTechs, or you can use the 4-channel iTechs to power both products. And because the A6 is a passive system, we can do quite a few speakers on one amplifier. So the connection is an L4 at the back, so you can use standard NL4 cables. We have a pin 1, pin 2 channel selection switch to make wiring much, much easier and far less wires. And then because of the very high impedance, we can do up to 4 A6s per channel. Okay? So one 4-channel amplifier can do up to 16 A6s. And I believe for this array you're going to be listening to today, we're using one amplifier per side to power the entire array. So we have a 3-3-2-2 wiring over here for this A6. So a really good amplifier to speaker ratio. And then the B15 also is powered by the iTech amplifiers. And then on one 4-channel amplifier, you can do up to 8 B15s, so 2 subwoofers per channel. That gives us a really good amplifier to tap ratio. So you can see here a very small system, like 8 A8s per side with some B15s. You can do an entire show like this on just two 4-channel amplifiers. OK, now to the rigging. Rigging is a big aspect of these A-series products. So again, this is a rigging that we developed for the A12, and then sized it down to the A8, and then sized it down to the A6. So all 3 products use identical rigging. And then the big thing about this rigging is that it has an auto-locking mechanism internally where it can be used to preset the angles. So what we need to do when the system is on the ground is simply move the pins to the correct position. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4 on the loudspeakers. And once we suspend the system off the ground, the auto-locking mechanism inside the rigging pre-locks those positions to those selected angles. So everything can be preset on the ground. We don't have to be setting angles as we go up. And then it's very easy to use, easy to understand. And then the only thing we need to do to de-rig the system, to bring it down, is press the button at the back, the red latch opens, and that unlocks the rigging, and it's ready to now come down into the cases and, for transportation. The B15 is compatible with the A6 in terms of mechanics, so we can fly A6s under B15s, and it has its own rigging system. This also uses a spring-loaded system, rigging mechanism, so when the system is on the ground, the springs hold tension to the rigging part so they don't vibrate. And then it's very easy to deploy. There is a mechanism in there, so you can just push it up, and then it deploys the link bar into the next cabinet. The accessories is what gives us the flexibility to use the systems in a lot of different configurations. So for the A6, we have quite a few accessories to support different setups and different configurations. And to start with, we have the mini frame. So the mini frame is the part at the very top of the array. So this is what we use to suspend systems. It's a very small and lightweight frame, and it can support the weight of up to 24 A6s. So you can rig up to 24 A6s on this mini frame. And it has a very nice and small compact footprint for storage. It's also very flexible in terms of configurations, so you can use it on a single point, dual point, and also reverse the frame. Sometimes we have to trim the system low and point very far up, and in those situations we have to be able to reverse the frames. So the mini frame is reversible and very flexible in terms of number of points used. That same mini frame is also compatible with the B15, so the B15s on the outside of the A6s are also suspended using mini frame. So the same frame can do both the A6 and the B15. And we also have a truss clamp. So in some situations, you don't have the budget or the trim height for a motor, and you want to attach the systems directly to the trussing. So for those situations, we have this thing that we call the RC500. So this is a mechanism to attach frames directly to trussing and then skip the motors altogether. So this connects directly to the mini frame on the splitter bar, and then gives you the option to do up to 500 kilos worth of weight on a truss. So this is really good for trade shows, smaller applications, or again, in this situation where we could have skipped the fly point and do the entire array on the RC500. We also have a suspension bar. So this suspension bar, it can be attached to the bottom of the array. Sometimes we have to create very curved arrays and trim them very, very high to get, let's say, out of camera views and things like that. So the suspension bar can be connected to the very back of the system and gives us another fly point at the very back to create these curved arrays. And it can also attach to the top of the A6. So depending on the configuration and the situation, we can skip the mini frame and suspend an A6 array completely on suspension bars. And that same suspension bar is also compatible with the B15. It can be used in a variety of different configurations. So again, the accessories are flexible, and they're also compatible across the different products within the line. Now, a lot of times we don't have the option to suspend systems. So I know in India specifically, this can be a big requirement where we can ground stack the systems. So for that, we have this accessory we call the base plate. So the base plate is an accessory that allows the A6s to be ground stacked on any subwoofer with an M20 attachment at the top. So in situations where we need to ground stack the systems, we can use this base plate and ground stack up to 8 A6s on top of subwoofers. So the picture over here shows our B28, but the same base plate, the exact same part, is compatible with the B18s and the B15s. So that gives us a very flexible solution and yet another way to deploy the system for a different application where fly points are not available. And then building onto that flexibility and expandability, that same base plate can also be used with another accessory we have. We call the VTX pole mount. So at the bottom of the base plate, there is two M10 positions, and we can attach on those this accessory we call the pole mount, and that gives us the option to put that base plate on traditional speaker stands or poles, and that will give us the option to use up to 3 A6s in this configuration. So that gives you, again, an idea of the flexibility and in how many different ways we can use that same system. So the goal is to have as many of the same product in the inventory as possible, and then using these accessories, deploy them in different configurations. For transportation, A6s go 4 in carts. So we make in cases, so we make our own case for this. So this case can hold up to 4 A6s. And it also has room internally for 1 mini frame, 1 base plate, and 1 suspension bar. So one case can house all the accessories. Depending on the situation, you can just send the case, and then you have everything needed to either suspend or ground stack the system in that one case. And now, the last piece I want to talk about before we go to the listening demo is software. So as I mentioned before, the A products, the VTXs, are powered by iTech amplifiers, and we consider them to be complete solutions. And the solution is never complete without software. So for this lineup, we have 3 pieces of software that can be used with these systems. So we have Performance Manager, which is the software that controls the iTech amplifiers. So Performance Manager connects to the iTechs over the network, and that allows us to send the presets to the devices, do our EQ and tuning and everything we need to set up the system. And then we also have the line array calculator and ArrayLink, which are used to design these systems. Performance Monitor can be used on a number of different devices, so it's very touch-friendly. It uses multi-touch, so it's very good on tablet devices, so you can connect to the amplifiers over Wi-Fi and walk the room and make your adjustments. And then LAC is the app that we use ahead of time to pre-design the system. So in LAC, we get the option to specify the different listening positions, the size of our venue. We get to tell LAC how many speakers we want to use. And then LAC can calculate the correct configuration for us and allow us to try a few different things to optimize the performance of the system. So we have things like gains and our optimization filters in LAC, so we can spend some time optimizing the system, so when we get to the venue, we can deploy the system and know that it's going to behave and perform as expected. ArrayLink is another critical piece of the story, and ArrayLink is an app where you can use on a cell phone and scan QR codes generated by ArrayLink, and then have the configuration of the system on the mobile device. So usually when it's time to fly the systems, we don't have a computer with us to look at all the angles. So ArrayLink lets us scan a QR code from LAC and then transfer all the angles and all the configuration files to a mobile device. So when it's time to fly the system, we have all the information we need to suspend the system or deploy the system in a mobile app. And given that we're using QR codes, this is not, does not require internet connectivity. So we can just scan those QR codes without internet connection. And that's the quick overview of the A6 and the B15. The next step over here is to do the fun part, which is to listen to the sound system. And for that, we're going to go through a few different configurations. So there's a few different ways we can use the A6. So to start with, we will be playing just the A6s without subwoofers. So it's going to be the 2 A6 arrays, no subs, and then we're going to play a few tracks with just the B15s on the outside. So these are crossed at 80 hertz between the A6s and the B15s. So we're going to play a couple of tracks on the B15s so you can listen to those. And then the last few tracks will be the combination of the A6 and the G28s on the ground. So we have quite a few G28s over here, which is the setup for the A12. We're not going to be using all the G28s for the A6. We're only going to be using the first centers, the 2 center stacks. And then that's going to show us how the A6 can integrate with dual 18s and the existing G28 subwoofers. And before I let you go and turn it to the listening demo, I just want to say, again, a quick thank you for coming to the A6 Lounge. We have me here and a few other people from the US will be around for the show. So feel free to come and say hello and ask questions about the products. So thank you, and to the listening demo.
Well, thank you so much, George. Thank you once again. Ladies and gentlemen, do stay tuned. We will be back shortly with our first performance of the day.